Sam Khan says, "O Lord, what am I to do? I've just received orders from my superiors that I am to execute the prisoner. Oh, how did I end up here? I do like my job, enforcing law and order and containing the wicked. But this man does not appear wicked. His followers are exceedingly kind. How is it that the mullahs and the clerics governing this land can find him dangerous? They have sentenced him to death with the charge of apostasy, the very same charge the Pharisees used to sentence you to death, when you too spread nothing but a message of love. How in good conscience am I to execute this man? I must go speak with him." Sam Khan says, "Sir, I assume you must have heard by now. You have been charged with apostasy and sentenced to death. I am to carry out your execution. But I am a Christian, and I bear you no ill will. I don't want to do you any harm, yet it's my orders to do so."
The Bab said, "Follow your instructions, and if your intention be sincere, surely the Almighty will be able to relieve you from your perplexity."
Faras Bashi says, "Last chance, boy. Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to go back down to the prison and get your beloved Bab. I'm going to hang him up by these ropes here. Then 750 of the Persian Empire's finest troops are going to take aim and fire at your bodies. 750 musket balls are then going to pierce, mutilate, and destroy your bodies. But your last chance, all of that can be avoided simply by saying that you made a mistake and I can take you away from here right now." Anis says, "Never." Faras Bashi says, "Humph." Faras Bashi says, "I'm sorry, but your time has come. I can see you're busy with your secretary, but the hour is now. I am here to take you to your execution."
"Not until I have said to him all the things I wish to say," the Bab warned the man, "can any earthly power silence me. Though all the world be armed against me, yet shall they be powerless to deter me from fulfilling to the last word my intention."
Sam Khan says, "Ready? Aim. Fire."
The smoke from the firing of those 750 old-style muskets shut out the light of the sun and turned the day momentarily into darkness. Many people were crowded on the rooftops of the buildings to watch thousands. And when the cloud of smoke cleared away, they could hardly believe their eyes. Muhammad Ali, the young boy, stood before them, alive and not in the least hurt. And the cords by which the two had been suspended had been cut, and the Bob himself had vanished. You can imagine what excitement that caused.
Farasbashi says, 750 of you, only 2 stationary targets from point-blank range, and all of you miss? Worse, not only did you miss him, but the only things you managed to hit were the 2 ropes that were suspending him so he could get away. Well, don't just stand there. Blockade the city. He can't have gotten far. He will not escape. Sam Khan says, Men, belay that order. We are done. I may lose my job. I may very well lose my life for this, but I will play no more part in this. We are done. Regiment, march out. Farasbashi says, Fine. The city police can make sure he doesn't escape. But first, I guess I need to take you back to prison until we get this all sorted out. Farasbashi says, You! What are you doing here? Out of all the places in the city to hide, you choose your prison cell? Well, that seems like an odd choice. And you just got shot at. How are you still just dictating your notes to your secretary as if nothing has happened?
At last they found the Bob in the room in which he had spent the night. He was finishing his conversation with his secretary Hussein. Remember, the conversation that had been interrupted that morning, and when he had said that no power on earth could stop him from fulfilling to the last wish his intention? Well, the Bob, when he saw the soldiers, turned to them and said, I have now finished my conversation with Sayyid Hussein. You may proceed to fulfill your intention.
Farash says, What do you mean? You don't get to decide when you die. Although, I guess you just did. This is just madness. You know what? I quit. Somebody else can deal with all this. Kanikamsi says, You know why I'm here. Kanikamsi says, Troops assemble. Ready. Aim. Fire.
And the very moment the shots were fired, a great storm swept over the city. A whirlwind of dust shut out the light of the sun and blinded the eyes of the people who were watching. The entire city was in darkness from noon until night. Many who had watched and who had not tried to save the Bob lost their lives shortly after, lost their money, lost their possessions. Terrible things happened. And the regiment which had fired upon the Bob, they too were made to suffer. Some were killed in an earthquake. Others, while resting under the shade of a wall, were killed by the falling of the wall. And the rest were shot because of something they had done. They had mutinied. And a strange thing, not only one volley was fired, but a second volley to make sure they were slain, just as had happened to the Bob. And so, with the death of the Bob, his enemies felt surely that now his cause would die and it would be heard of no more. But you will see how very mistaken they were. The Bob, you see, was only the dawn, and Baha'u'llah, the sun, would soon arise. And so, just as Jesus had died on the cross, so that men might be called back to God, so did the precious Bob breathe his last against a barracks wall in the sun-drenched city of Tabriz at high noon, July 9th, 1850. A day commemorated and honored in nearly 100,000 places around the world today, and that's only the beginning.
Ani says as he steps forward, And what of my remains and the Bab's? Soldiers were instructed to guard them while they decomposed by a moat, but our remains were rescued and kept hidden. Rather than telling their superiors that they have forfeited our remains, the soldiers guarding them told their superiors we had been devoured by wild animals. The clerics boasted regularly about how our mission could not possibly have come from God if he had let our remains be devoured by wild animals, completely unaware that we were secretly being kept safe for 60 years until we made our way to our final resting place on Mount Carmel in the Holy Land.